Hello, everybody, and good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning to you all. It is your girl, Ruthie D. Truth, your financial wellness coach and your number one strategist for goal-driven planning. And we are back with another episode of Life Adjustments, Dads and Grad Series. And today we are going to be talking about the difference between the life adjustments, but difference between empty nesters and free birds. So we are back here with Mr. Steve Stewart. And for those of you who don't know who he is, I will let him briefly introduce himself. And then we're going to jump right on into this episode. Take it away, Steve.
Take it away, Steve. I'm just a guy that I fell into a career as a podcast editor for personal finance podcasters, and I absolutely love it, love it, love it. And that's what I do today. That, and I also train podcast editors to start and grow businesses of their own, to do what I do, full-time podcast editing.
Yes, absolutely. And we definitely need people like you because Lord knows this editing process is for the birds.
Yes. Speaking of birds,
Right.
I got you there. I follow what you're putting out there.
Yeah. So speaking of, so you have definitely given me the a 101 of what it is to be a free bird, because I thought originally, like, okay, so just to back up a little bit, this episode is geared towards helping people during their life transitions, right? And so we highlight different life transitions that we are going through pretty much actively, right? Because this is the truth. We tell the truth about these different the steps and what happens, because a lot of these conversations are simply just not had. So, but we all go through the transition, especially as parents of our children growing up, right? And growing up to the point of independence. And for those of us parents out there that are going through this life transition actively, it is quite a journey. And I'm very curious, I will obviously give the mom perspective, and then Steve can definitely give the dad perspective. So this will be quite interesting, of just like what the expectations may have been before the children left the house, and then, how it's going. And, maybe there may have been some conversations that the children have with us along the way, and that we may not have necessarily expected as parents. So in the previous episode, Steve explained about how his daughter just dropped a couple of bands on a brand new ride. And not only that, but she wrapped her vehicle and paid all cash. So proud dad moment. Just had to plug that in real quick. And this is one of the essence of parenting, right? It's like almost like the stamp of you feeling like you've done something right along the years, because Lord knows we go through so many transitions of not knowing if whatever we're doing may be right for our child, because these generations are so different than when we grow up as children ourselves. So yeah, Steve, if you would be so kind to explain to the people what you had explained to me, the difference between empty nesting versus being a free bird.
Yeah, I didn't even hear the term until recently, and it was a friend of mine in the personal finance space who said it in a comment on a Facebook post or something crazy like that. I'm like, oh, I see, because a lot of people, when you think about empty nesters, the perception is, oh, the parents no longer have the kids at home, and that's true. That's the fact. When you turn around and look at it as in, oh, we're free birds, it's kind of a positive spin on the name. It's a positive spin that, okay, we have raised the child, we have raised the birds, we've let them loose on the world, and they are no longer under our roofs. We're free. We're free birds in this space. And we always knew there would be a day. We just never really knew approximately when it would come. The
Right.
daughter we only have one daughter, so I'm not an expert. We only have one kid, one daughter. That's the only child.
That's a lot
One.
of work.
Well, it's not a lot of work compared to some people. I've seen other people's kids. It's a lot of work.
Oh, Steve.
But when you have two or three, it gets to be really complicated. There's a lot going on. We've only had the one, so I can speak from that standpoint. But she did enough things along the way to prove that we could loosen the reins a little bit and let her loose, let her do things on her own. In fact, there was one time I happened to be out of town. I think I was at a conference, and the next day, the day after this thing happened, my wife called me. I was busy, but she was able to call me anyway, and we talked. And she's like, "Do you know what your daughter did last night?" And I'm like, "What?" She left me a note at 1 a.m. that she was going out with her friends. Now, that was never anything she had done or tried to do before. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? But we weren't upset. We weren't very upset because she had done enough responsible things. We knew her friends. We knew that she left us a note. That's, you have murder and premeditated murder. This is premeditated. So she knew enough to leave us a note so that when mom woke up in the middle of the night and dad's out of town, my wife doesn't just freak out. Oh my gosh, where's our daughter? So, there was enough reins, enough, loose lead given there that she could do something like that and not completely get, what do you call it? Grounded? Gosh, what do we do to these kids these days? We can't ground them because they're in their rooms where they want to be
Yeah,
anyway. Take
you
away
know,
their Instagram.
I think it's still punishment is still fair because they feel a certain level of punishment when you just don't do the things that they expect you to do, like when you kind of reverse the expectations on them
Yeah.
a bit.
So where was I
But
going with the story? But yeah, she had earned enough points to be able to get that leeway, and I think when the time came where she needed to be reprimanded, she did. She got reprimanded, but it never needed to be as so bad that we had to strap her down and confine
right,
her to whatever it is.
right, and so like yeah, being the parent of a daughter, I think is like the most nerve wracking. I would say because kind of to your point, yes, girls tend to be very calculated when it comes to them doing things that they know you wouldn't necessarily say yes to,
Right.
but they've learned your pattern so much to the point where they what is they call, they call it something in the hospital world where you just kind of like weigh the benefits. They calculate to see if the risk outweigh the benefits,
Okay.
and I guess they figure the benefits outweigh the risk, so then they just risk it all and just kind of do their thing. And it's so interesting that you were talking about that because my daughter did something similar, and she's 15, so she's definitely not at the age to leave a note and walk out the door.
Right. Right.
But she's been with her dad since COVID because I used to work in the hospitals in New York. So um, both of them went out there, but then my daughter wanted to stay out there. My son wanted, some hot meals every day. And so he came back home for a bit. But now he's 13. And I'm like, you know what? This summer, right after I sold my house, I said, your dad has a house too. Like you can live there and enjoy that, enjoy your father, because obviously, I understand what it is to have those memories. So I don't want my children to miss out on that. And yeah, so my daughter decided that she begged her father to go sleep over her friend's house because her friend's mom was selling the house and moving to Virginia from Texas. And so they decided that they were going to go to the YMCA, and they were just going to put it on social media that that's where they were. So these boys just happened to come to the YMCA.
So
And
weird.
right, random, it's
Wow.
funny
How's that happen?
story. I've heard so many renditions of the story. And long story short, somehow these random YMCA boys ended up finding out where her friend lived, right? And so it was just, oh, well, her mom is selling the house. So maybe that's how they figured it out. Whatever. I tell you, there's so many different stories, but versions to the story. But one thing that I kind of pride gave was proud of myself about was the fact that I had this wheel of life. So I have a workbook that I just released right on Amazon, and it's called the Wheel of Life Workbook. Now, this Wheel of Life, I was explaining to you during FinCon, I've been doing this since the beginning of this year, right, with the children. And this has been my way to stay communicating, like stay in close communication with my daughter before my son went out there. But now that he's out there, we still have it once a week, but now they both are doing it digitally. And so I guess this is kind of like the note in a way, but like the teenage version of it. And so she never told me she was on punishment, but her father did punish her. And when the Monday came up for us to do the Wheel of Life, all of her numbers dropped. Right. And so basically the Wheel of Life is 8 categories, and you're supposed to rank it on a scale of 1 to 10. Right. So there's 10 circles, and you shade in for each of the 8 categories: family, friends, health. I forget all of the categories, but it's 8 main categories of life that are both affected by mental health and your finances. And all of the numbers went down, and she realized that she was not, her decision to not be responsible enough, although she claimed that it was not her responsibility to make sure the boys didn't come to the YMCA and that they didn't show up at her friend's front door and somehow ended up in the house. And the neighbors were watching the house because the house was being sold. And yeah, so it wasn't her responsibility, but she realized that the risk kind of outweighed the benefit because her decision, it affected the other categories in her life. And now she had to be accountable to my son and I to explain why she was feeling lower, on the scale in majority of the category, because that one decision had a domino effect and impact.
Very interesting. Very,
Yeah.
I'd never seen or heard of a process like that. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So ultimately that's what made me decide to publish that workbook, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like it was at that moment I realized it worked. It worked.
Yes.
And she wasn't able to come to New York during the summertime, which she is, but she was punished. And I told her father said, no, you're punished until you go back to school. And I'm like, whew, she had just got out of school. So the whole summer, and she felt like, well, we didn't trust her because it wasn't her house or blah blah blah. She gave all types of scenarios, but it was besides the point. It was like the decision that you made could have put you at risk, and because of this, now that it can have a domino effect. So now she's much more aware of the decisions that she makes, because she knows once a week she's gonna have to fess up to how she's really feeling about the decisions that she's making in life.
I love that because you're not putting the decision of punishment or restrictions on an objective measurement. You're using something that is it's almost physical right in front of her. She can see it. It's a measurement of her own behavior. Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot.
Right. It's like a self accountable.
It's
Yes.
not mom being not fair. It's not the situation. It's there's the facts. Interesting.
Yes. It's amazing. Oh my God. It's so amazing. And I'm like, I cannot wait for more people to like really implement this, because this was such a game changer in my transition of like, okay, how do I parent the children now that they're no longer in my house? And then, but not just parent them, but parent them in an effective manner where I still can instill the values of whatever they value, right? Because at the end of the day, they're making they're allowed to make the decisions, right? They're given that leeway, even though they're not adults, but they are also I'm trusting them to be honest with me about how they are feeling in all of these 8 categories, because these categories go nowhere as they get older. Like this is just
Mm-hmm.
a steady thing through every age and stage of life. And if the more that they keep this habit without me saying anything, because I'm not telling them what to do, I'm not even suggesting to them what to do. I'm just simply asking a very simple question: how are you feeling about each one of these 8 categories? And then I'm just, just sitting back. What do they call it? oh, what's the word? Non-resistance. You know,
Okay.
it's just like the practice of non-resistance. And I'm a control freak at times. Like as a as a parent, definitely, because I'm like, no, you know, don't don't mess up the dishes, don't do this, that, whatever. Like I'm OCD. I like things to be a certain way. And having children, most people who have children, they know like that's never gonna like be a thing.
So we started off this thing about empty nesters and free birds. How does the last 5, 10 minutes, what we're talking about having kids, how does that transition into people who don't have the kids living with them anymore?
So
Give them something to remember from this episode.
right, exactly. So this is definitely a way for them to still stay connected, right? Because a lot of times when the children leave, it's a sense that you're disconnected from them. Like you feel like you're no longer in their life. People may, I can't say exactly how
Mm-hmm.
someone will, but they may feel like they're no longer connected with their child that they've been connected with all of these years, however many years it may be, because everybody's parenting dynamics are different. And especially now with blended families and everything, like as the world is evolving, that's what it is. And even if, like, say for example, the child doesn't live with the parents, right? And let's just say they're not adults, but they are free birds in the sense. That's why I love that you said that. Like it makes so much sense, because even free birds that they're not a custodial parent, they can still have that connection. And it's across all ages, like from as long as your child can read, like I would say the age of 5, and understand the concept of feelings, how they feel, it helps them stay connected to their emotions, boys and girls. And that mental, like, approaching the mental health aspect of their decisions, it has a lasting effect on their financial decisions once they get older, just naturally, because now they have an outlet. And that's something that I realized is very difficult, especially for boys, right? And males, like they're always taught to keep everything inside and not really to express the emotions. And it's I've been tapping into, for the month of November, men's mental health month, right? And so I've been highlighting a lot of different reasons and way, like we all think that it's obvious, but it's really not as obvious as most of us may think, as to why we do certain things or why we don't do certain things. And so um, feeling disconnected is partly due to the fact that that nobody really asks the question, how are you feeling? Right? And that question alone is what creates the connection, no matter what the distance is. Like I'm in New York, the kids are in Houston. That is miles away,
Oh,
like
yeah.
hours away. But it's a simple question that keeps us together as if we've never been apart.
That's a hard question for men to ask. So we got to step it up and we got to be able to say to our kids, how you feeling? I'm
Right.
going to text that to my daughter when we're done here.
Aw,
Yeah.
yeah. And I invite you, you know what? I'll send you over a copy of the actual the Wheel of Life, because it's a great and I have some of the live videos on Wednesdays. So I do Wheel of Life Wednesdays. And it's an interactive thing that you can do digitally. There's a digital option, and you pick a color. Sometimes, depending on how a person is feeling, they'll pick multiple colors. And there's psychology even with colors.
Hmm.
And so if there's a certain color that's being shaded in for a different area in life, that's like a nonverbal communication that, it makes it easier for any guy to like still be able to have an outlet and express whatever's going on inwardly, and also receive it from, their child or children, because it's their presence is very important. And so this is a way where they can always be present, at least especially if they dedicate it once a week, or even if it's once a month or every other week, whatever the consistency is, to hit the dad's capacity. And even moms, because I'm a mom and I do it, like their father doesn't really do that, because I created it and I can't tell him what to do. But you know, for fathers that are open to wanting to stay connected to their children, now that being that they live as free birds, this is like this is such a great tool because it just, you don't have to think about it. You just literally, you get a book or you order the book and you just look, or just, they could just watch the live on Instagram and they can just answer the questions or answer the number, and it's numbers, it's words and numbers, so it doesn't feel too invasive on the feelings because you're just numbering it, you know. Guys love numbers. Right, so yeah. Oh, I can't hear
Sorry, I was on mute. Can you believe it?
you. What happened?
Keep speaking the truth, Ruthie.
Yeah, that is my goal at all times. But yeah, so I hope that answered the question because I know sometimes I can be a little loquacious. So I'm not sure if that really answered the question precisely, but that's the general idea of it, is that no matter how far any parent may feel from their child or children at any age and stage and either side, on either side, they can still use a simple tool to, and words, numbers, you know, just to keep it simple, keep the process simple, keep the connection simple, and they'll be surprised as to how much comes out of it, and how much freer, no pun intended, they feel after they express why, because it's not just giving the number, but it's also on a scale of 1 to 10 how you're feeling. If you pick a number, you also, the activity is to say why, like why did you pick that number out of all, because you got 10 numbers to choose from, why did you pick that one number besides the fact that it's a part of the activity. And yeah, and it's amazing, and the children, they really, they love it. Like my son, we just did it on Monday, and my son's numbers went up tremendously, and
Yay.
he's much more mindful of his actions and decisions, and it's like it's a form of being present even though you're not present. And it's just, it's a make, like I didn't even think it was gonna come to be this when I first started it out. I was just testing things, you know, just at random, and then it just developed into something so impactful and just like beautiful. Like you feel so lit, like everything feels lifted. The stress of parenting and the stress of not knowing, like, oh my God, what is my child doing? Or what are they not doing? Or what's going on? Like all of that is relieved with this activity because you setting the expectation on both sides and you agree upon it, right? Like you giving your child the option to participate or not. And even if they don't want to, you say, hey, I would really love it if you sharing this, but however you want to, you know, bring it across, like, and dads, they have, I told you, they have this like magical thing about them where it's like this child is not really going to say no, like you'll get the yes, and then it's smooth sailings from there. And I think because one of the other episodes I was speaking with another father about was, you know, how there's no manual to parenting. And so like even with the free, you know, becoming a free bird, or traditionally they call it empty nesting, it's like what are the transitions when you no longer have this child here, or like what does that look like? And this is like as close to a manual that I have discovered, because it's so simple. It really can fit um any situation, like even before they leave the house, it can fit it. And even when you first have a child, this is a tool that can be used between couples, and even couples that don't have children, right? Because it's like a meeting, just like a business. You in order for a business to function properly, you have to um meet, you know, whether it's weekly or monthly or quarterly, like, and figure out like, hey, what are we working on, right? Because it's a team collaborative effort. So it literally is for all ages, stages, all transitions in life. This is the closest to a cookie cutter manual for all things life transitions is concerned.
Well, I may have to whip this thing out. My daughter's going to visit us in 2 months, so I might whip it out when she lands and then see what it's like when she leaves.
Uh, yeah, yeah, and I would love to get your feedback to see like how it goes. The workbook is for 8 weeks, but you could do this for as long as you want, and it's fun. It's really I can't wait to interview my children so that way they can like give their perspectives because they also have a lot to say and they have very interesting perspectives. The boy and girl, like they surprise me because I'm like I don't remember teaching you guys any of this, but they have their own personality that develops from it, and it's amazing. It's really like it's life changing. It's changed my life, and I'm like weirded out by the fact that like I created this thing that without knowing how to navigate life and just kind of figuring out a lot of things on the fly. It's just it happened, and I dedicated this book to my dad. And just that experience of not knowing how to manage life without him. And that's really what makes this workbook so near and dear to my heart is just the fact that like I've done this as a way to keep his memory alive because it's been rough for me to fathom life without every day. Like it never goes away. Since 2012 he has been passed, and it that feeling just it's unlike any other. But this has given me a new purpose in life because I love to talk about it, and I love to be able to kind of like help other dads and grads out there stay connected and get through the life transitions easier than I felt like I did. I wish I would have had this when I was going through it. I would have, oh my gosh, taken so much stress off of me. But
Mm-hmm.
but it's here now. So yeah. So I hope I didn't talk your head off, Steve. I'm here to interview you.
Yeah, we got everything out I needed to say. That's a
Okay.
very cool thing. I'm interested in seeing it, and I hope the people who are watching this try it out too.
Yes, yes. And I can't wait. I cannot wait to see the reviews. But yeah. So any final words before we officially conclude, Mr.
Hmm.
Freebird?
I think my theme for the last episode or two has been lead by example, and you're letting your kids go. Hopefully they got the wings to fly.
Yes, I'm prayerful that hopefully they do. It's always nerve-wracking because
Yep.
that the fear of the unknown is always something that's never going to go away.
Yep.
But
We're raising future humans, so the future leaders of America, right?
right, it's like
It's a
when
big
you really
responsibility.
right, exactly.
Yep.
But all right. So for all the viewers and listeners out there, we encourage you to please leave your feedback. And if there's anything that you have taken away from this episode, we want to hear about it. We want to know exactly what it is that you may be going through in life. What life transition as a free bird or the so-called empty nester lifestyle, if you are one, what have been some of your life transitions that you are experiencing? And yeah, be sure to do the poll as well because we would love to get your feedback. So, Steve, until next time, thank you again. I appreciate your time and yeah, your feedback and the lesson on what it really is to be a free bird in 2023.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Yes. All right. So until next time, we will see you later. Bye.